This evening, we're going to look at case 9 of the Shoyroku, the Book of Equanimity. And I'm going to read to you the main case and just give some short thoughts about this particular case. Case 9, Nansen cuts a cat. Attention. At Nansen's place, one day, the monks of the East and West halls were arguing about a cat. Seeing this, Nansen held it up before him, saying, "If you can say a word, I won't cut it." The assembly made no response. Nansen cut the cat in two. Nansen later told Joshu what happened. Joshu took off his straw sandals and, placing them on his head, went out. Nansen remarked, "If you had been there, you could have saved the cat." This case certainly grabs our attention in a way that the previous cases have not. Here we're seeing that a Zen master cutting a cat in two, killing a cat, really. Many of the previous cases we've have been talking about involve karma, involve the law of cause and effect, and now we see Nansen breaking the precepts by killing a cat. So it seems to be very contradictory. And we need to look at what the symbolic meaning of the cat may be. So what is this cat representative of? And what is the mindset of Nansen? How do feelings of guilt or regret play into this koan? And what is it that we think is so precious? For me, this koan is about ending distraction to things that we have become petty about, or in a sense, negatively attached to. I have to ask myself from time to time, what is it that's wasting my time? What is it that wastes my time? What prevents me from enjoying the beauty of life, the wonder of life? I think this is what Nansen is trying to pull these monks out of their petty argumentation and refocus on what we call the great matter of life and death in Zen. Right? That's the focus. That's what we want to focus on. What's the great matter? And so Nansen presents the great matter of life and death by pulling up a cat and say, "I will cut this in two if you can give me a word." He's testing them. He's testing his monks to see if they are really practicing the great matter of life and death, or are they wasting their time in arguments over small matters? This koan is, I think, telling us to distinguish between what is really pressing and what is not pressing, what really matters and what does not matter. And for Zen, the great matter of life and death is the most pressing thing. One can also say that this koan is perhaps about indecisiveness. Right? The inability to say something by the monks. They couldn't say it. They couldn't give a word. If we look at the word decide, to decide, it's a compound word. Side means to kill. De means to. In making a choice, something has to not be included. Something has to be killed. We have a similar story actually in the Hebrew Bible about King Solomon. Maybe you remember this story. Two women are fighting over a baby. One is the true mother and the other is not. One woman is trying to steal the baby from the other woman, whose baby it actually is. And so they present this matter to King Solomon, and they both declare themselves to be the mother. So in his wisdom, King Solomon decides, he says, okay, well, if you're going to fight over who's the mother, then I will cut the baby in two. Half of it will go to one of you, and the other half will go to the other. Seems like a pretty extreme way of making it seems like an extreme decision in this case. But what happens is it forces the true mother to come forward and say, please spare the baby, give it to the other woman. The woman who was not the true mother wasn't able to say that. And so King Solomon recognized the true mother in saying that he was going to do that. And he gave the baby to the true mother. In Zen, anytime you have a sword involved, it's about cutting through, I think it's about cutting through delusion. It's about wisdom. Right? So we have the sword or a knife, and it's something sharp. So that's half of the story. That's half of the story. It's about cutting through delusion, using our wisdom, using our concentration to cut through delusion and attain some kind of insight. That's half of the story. And then we have this other half with Joshu putting his sandals on top of his head. And so what do we make about this action? And what I was told about this action of putting sandals on the head, it's a sign, it's a symbol of mourning in Chinese culture. It's a symbol of mourning. It demonstrates perhaps grief. So Joshu must have felt something deep regarding the cat. He was grieving over it. And this is a sign of the other half of practice, which is compassion. You can't just have wisdom without compassion. Otherwise, it's like a one-winged bird. It can't fly. So wisdom and compassion are the two wings of the bird. We need both of them. Joshu presents the wisdom side. Nansen presents the wisdom side by cutting the cat. Joshu presents the compassion side by putting his sandals on his head. This is one way to look at this story. For us, we need to know when to cut through delusion and when to cultivate compassion or to be compassionate. We need to know the difference. And this is tricky. What needs to die in our life, quote unquote? What needs to die in our life so that we have real life, real living? What needs to be grieved for? What do we want to give birth to in our world? And what do we need to let go of in order to give birth to that world? So those are the questions I want to leave us with this evening. So we'll have our discussion from now. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you.